in our view, the entire world is being recreated right now. There's endless opportunities. Nobody has an excuse not to be starting a business right now.
Devon, Karlton, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So tell me, what is happening right now at Meridian?
We are energized. We started Meridian back in 2023 with our first fund. And we started that fund with a proof of concept vehicle. And we had this thesis that we wanted to validate. And we did that over the course of a couple years with the vision to not build a fund, but to build a durable investment firm. And so today, what that looks like is we just closed on our target for $25 million, shooting towards our hard cap. We're making a series of investments in technology businesses that we think are going to transform humanity and transform the world. We're working closely with our limited partners in order to help serve our founders and utilize the ever-evolving world of technology with AI and build it into our business in unique ways and try to provide value where we can.
Now, Karlton, what was the different thesis he's talking about?
The difference is the type of founders we're looking for. And so we think there's kind of two ways to build a venture capital fund. You can either have sector expertise, you can be the most intelligent fintech investors that exist, or you specialize in supply chain, or you can build a fund around a certain kind of founder profile, like a talent segment, if you will. And that's what we've done with Meridian. So we are 100% focused on a very specific founder profile, and that is somebody that has an MBA from one of 10 business schools in the US. It's kind of a contrarian take. There's a lot of venture capitalists out there that actually think business school founders don't make for good founders. But if you look at the data, and there's actually a professor at Stanford that has done all of this research and published it, it's quite clear. Business school founders do make excellent founders. And so our job is let's become the best fund in the world at investing in business school founders and make sure we have airtight coverage. No opportunity comes through that we don't see. And then we find the people that we think are the highest potential founders and buy a bit of their company at the earliest stage.
How do you decide? You said there's only 10 schools. How do you get into that special circle?
The 10 schools is based on the research that was published out of Stanford. And so it's the professor who did the research basically dissected all of the venture-backed billion-plus dollar tech companies in the country over the last 20 years or so. And he has a lot of statistics, and he's able to tie the success rates to those schools. And so you can see a pretty clear stack ranking of which schools produce the best tech founder profiles. And so we've kind of focused on those.
Yeah, so in terms of how we did it, in 2020, I launched Early Admit. It was the first company that I had started, and our first go-to-market product was admissions consulting, specifically for deferred MBA. This was a fundamental transformation in the MBA market in 2020, whereby instead of your 2 to 4 years of professional work experience and then you matriculate to a full-time program, you actually gain admission your senior year of college. And you're still expected to go work for 2 to 5 years. But we had built a business at Early Admit that served that community, developed those relationships, and built a network and a community that now we are able to leverage and to really find these MBA founders up to 5 years before other venture capitalists.
Tell me about the pipeline, because I think a lot of people think MBAs, they're going on to Wall Street, consulting, tech. If they are founders, they probably drop out ahead of time. There's always I know a ton of HBS founders that got an idea while in school and decided to pursue that idea instead of graduate. Yeah. What is the pipeline like? And talk to me about how you find the founders.
If you just zoom out on the history of business schools in the US, I think one of the major trends that you would find is they're actually shifting towards entrepreneurship. And part of that is led by the Stanford Business School, because they've had a lot of success in the past 20, 30 years of graduating individuals who have started these massive technology businesses. And HBS and Wharton and MIT want to move in that same direction. And so you can actually see the profile of individuals they're admitting to the school is changing. It's becoming more STEM. It's becoming more tech focused. And then they're also encouraging more students as they graduate to go start businesses. And so just focusing on one business school, say Harvard Business School, you would find that maybe 10 years ago, 5% of people went and started companies. Today, that's almost 20%. So it's increasing pretty significantly, and a lot of the school is aligned with providing more resources and encouraging students to go down that path. We find these opportunities, we think of it as like a three-pronged approach, if you will. The first is we think we have an advantage with meeting this talent early, and that's through the deferred MBA community. This is what Devon just mentioned. It's an ability for us to meet individuals 3, 4, or 5 years before they even step foot on campus in business school. We build that relationship early, and that way when they go start a business, we can be the first ones to take a look at the opportunity. That's step number one. So we meet a lot of individuals that way, and it's a real advantage. Number two is we've developed a brand for ourselves as one of the funds that invests in MBAs. And we spend a lot of time getting to know other funds and sharing deals and becoming really good partners. And so it's pretty common that other funds will send us opportunities as they see them. So that's kind of the second way we find deals within the MBA community. And then anything we miss gets caught through some pieces of technology that we've been spending the past couple months building. And the long short of it is it's an AI tool that scans the web. And if there's any information that's available about somebody starting a company with an MBA from one of these schools, then we get notified about it and then we can reach out.
You mentioned for a decade now, there's been kind of the cachet of dropping out of college or dropping out of MBA and starting a company.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys said there's a Stanford report, there's data that proves, hey, actually MBAs are great entrepreneurs. What, outside of the data, kind of what are the skill sets? Like what advantage does this kind of graduate founder have over someone else that maybe not have that experience?
There are certainly MBA founders that aren't positioned well for entrepreneurship. We do believe that it's disproportionately the case that MBA founders are positioned well for entrepreneurship, and some of those underlying characteristics and what the institutions actually serve for them is number one, a network. It is when they say go to MBA not to learn anything, but to build a network, that's actually very true. And that network derives value in numerous ways. One being that if you actually look at the buyer sets for when a company looks to exit, public companies, private companies, strategics, many times those buyers are actually alumni from that school. Mm. And so that helps obviously create that value forward piece there. Raising capital. It's incredibly important to raise capital. And today it is easier if you have some stamp of credibility, some qualification piece that you can call to, and the network part as well. Lastly, I would say talent is incredibly important. And what these top 10 business schools are really trying to do at the core is to develop leaders that are going to transform society for the better. And that starts with leadership. And leaders can attract talent, they can retain talent. And we believe if you really combine all those factors, that is what an institutional grade university can actually help a founder.
You guys are both MBA grads and founders. Tell me how you both met and how you decided to launch this firm together.
Yeah, so it's a crazy story that honestly, looking back, is a product of a lot of luck and a lot of just crazy timing. I'm originally from a small town in Arkansas, and then I went to the University of Arkansas. So I grew up in a very different world than the one I'm in today.
Razorbacks, here we go.
Razorbacks, that's right. And I studied engineering in undergrad. And I happened to have a professor who invited me to take a leadership class with him. And as part of that class, we had to read these series of leadership books. And one of them in particular was written by a guy who was a professor at Harvard Business School named Bill George. And he described the classroom experience of being at HBS.
What was the book called?
It's called Discover Your True North.
Okay.
And that book single-handedly changed my life because I'd never heard of Harvard Business School before. I had no exposure to this world. I'd never met someone from one of these programs. And so I was curious to learn more. It sounded awesome. And so I literally am on the website learning about Harvard Business School, and there's a targeted ad that pops up on the website for this program called the 2+2, which is deferred admission to HBS. And so I bookmarked the web page, and then I started studying for the GMAT, and I threw my name in the hat thinking I would never make it. And to my surprise, I got in. And that day fundamentally changed the entire trajectory of my life. And 2 days later, I met Devon. And meeting Devon is one of the major reasons it changed, because Devon and I have been best friends for 5 years now, and we've been able to go on this amazing journey for coming up on 3 years. And I never would have met him if it wasn't for that program.
I say, Devon, how'd you meet? You're not from Arkansas.
I'm not from Arkansas. I mean, the common theme between Karlton and I is that we have arrived really in the point in our journeys by a lot of fortune, by a lot of hard work. But the theme is that we're non-traditional. We're not your traditional venture capitalist. We're not your traditional Harvard Business School graduate. And my story started in Tacoma, Washington. I was fortunate to grow up with a mother who raised 3 kids all by her own. 3 kids by 17 years old, no father figure in the picture. We grew up in complete poverty. And it was challenging, and it taught me a lot of life lessons, principles that really guide my life. And I became a salesperson very early on. I used to go to the dollar store, buy assorted candies, develop a sales script, walk miles, knocking on doors, selling candy for a profit. I had a lawn care business that I ended up starting when I moved to Utah. But we talked about this earlier. After the great financial crisis, my mom couldn't afford to take care of all of her children. My grandparents moved to American Fork, Utah. She asked my grandparents, could you take Devon with you? So I moved there, and it was completely different demographically, politically, socially, but it was an opportunity for me to reinvent who I wanted to be. I met a family in 2014 that changed my entire life. They were very instrumental in my career. They taught me that education could really be a platform to unleash my potential in the world. And so I started slow to go fast, and I enrolled at Utah Valley University. I majored in behavioral science and worked full-time simultaneously, and then transferred to the University of Utah. And I was fortunate to get into the same program that Karlton got into, which was the HBS 2+2 deferred. And he had reached out, and he said, you're working in this occupation called private equity. What in the world is that? But it sounds pretty cool. And the first conversation we had was, what is carried interest? And we start to develop a relationship beyond professional. And we had a couple events and in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we really built a special friendship. And one day I called him and said, I have a crazy idea, and I want you to be a part of it. We're going to launch a venture capital firm.
This is when you guys are in as students together?
We were not students. So this was 6 months before we attended Harvard Business School.
Wow, okay.
So I was working for a growth equity firm based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. They were focused on lower mid-market growth software investments. Fabulous opportunity to learn the art and science of investing. Karlton was at a family office out of Arkansas, a very prominent family. He was doing the same type of work. And in fact, we actually overlapped and shared work when we were at our respective firms. I was moonlighting a business on the side when I was at this investment firm, and I decided to resign to take the business through a sale process.
What was the business?
Early admit.
Okay, that was okay. Yeah.
Yep. And we had bolted on other product categories beyond that. It really exploded in growth. 80 employees, large university systems as customers, sold to private equity.
Wow, that's your side job. That's pretty good.
That was a side job.
Yeah.
It was a grind. My wife didn't love it, but it was great. And I had resigned and then sold the business and was thinking about what next. And there were so many things that were really emerging, and there was a light bulb in the bottle moment for us. And we ended up doing it together, and it's been the best decision we've ever made.
Well, so you guys met and partnered and started a VC firm before even your first day at HBS.
Yes.
And then tell me how that worked. You went to school, and then you moonlighted the VC firm. Like, tell me how that got started.
So in January 2023, we set out to raise $1 million for this proof of concept fund. And we went out and fundraised. And that was an amazing experience because we learned it from the ground up. I mean, we didn't have a network of capital. We took zero attribution from our prior firms. We didn't have a tier 1 resume. We mapped ecosystems. We built a sales funnel. We learned how to fundraise, and really one of the most challenging economic environments for an emerging manager. 80% of the capital of total VC dollars were actually going to established firms, and of the 20% of capital, those were going to tier 1 spinouts. So we weren't trying to be a part of that herd mentality. We had to go to the areas where others weren't actually willing to venture. We raised an oversubscribed round that closed. We had our final close in early August 2025, which was right before we attended HBS. We managed that fund. We deployed that fund. We helped our founders. And we went and raised a second fund during business school. We did that simultaneously. And it was challenging in many respects. But we learned quite a lot, I'd say. Quite a lot.
What's the biggest lesson you guys learned from that?
Time management.
What's the trick to time management? Everyone's juggling work-life balance.
Yeah.
What is your time management advice?
Ruthless prioritization. If you just ask yourself at the beginning of each day, what are the 2 to 3 most important things that I could get done today that would really move the needle? And then you have to focus on those, and you're going to get bombarded with 300 notifications a day. And you just have to find a way to keep those out.
What is the kind of, right now, like venture capital is going through an inflection point for many, many reasons. What are you seeing now? What is the environment like?
I mean, it's unknown, it's uncertain, which can create a lot of opportunity. And I think there are good behaviors that are existing in the market right now, such as the advent of AI. We really believe that there is a tectonic shift that is existing right now in the technology market that is going to provide the most value capture we've ever seen. While that is true, that can create challenges. How do you enter in a deal that is fairly priced from multiple party standpoint? That for us, our customer is the limited partner. How can we think about the entry price relative to the exit price such that we can provide a return to our limited partners that is top decile? That is challenging in today's market because you have established venture capitalists that are actually coming down market and they're competing with emerging managers, and they have the pockets to do so, right? And so that's creating some tricky dynamics. In the same vein, we are moving from a cottage industry to a commoditized industry. And I actually believe we're going back to a period of time where you have to differentiate yourself. And by doing that, you can actually create alpha in the marketplace. And so that's where we're hitching our wagons. That's where we're seeing a lot of opportunities. We kind of find that opportunities within AI today are really being corralled in a certain spot. And what if you can find neglected investment opportunities that some of the other individuals and parties aren't seeing? Can you serve them in a way that can create an outsized return? We see that quite frequently.
Karlton, if you're meeting with a founder and they want to win a deal from you, what are you looking for? Like, what advice do you have what advice do you have for a founder who's out there raising money right now and talking to your firm?
In our view, the entire world is being recreated right now. Like if you just kind of zoom out, there are moments in time where venture capital does extraordinarily well because there's some sort of new technological innovation that changes human behavior, and there's all sorts of opportunities that are born in those moments. We're undeniably in one of those moments, possibly the biggest moment of our lifetime. And so there's endless opportunities. I mean, nobody has an excuse not to be starting a business right now. And so my encouragement to them would be, think systematically. If you're looking for an idea or you're looking for the next opportunity, think systematically about the US economy and go break it down industry by industry. And then within every industry, you can find sub-verticals that are interesting. And within a sub-vertical, you can identify some type of white collar job that are currently being performed by typically middle management or lower entry level jobs. Most of those within 5 to 10 years, it's inevitability that they will be automated. And so if you can bring in a really great commercial founder, a really excellent chief technology officer, and you go and just hyper focus on solving that niche problem in a space that's large enough for you to have a good venture exit, so a $1 billion potential business size, but it's not so big that it's attracting all the attention from the biggest fish in the ponds, if you will, then you can really create a very valuable business. And then I would encourage them to think about how they can create a wedge product, something that is really interesting, that solves a real problem for a business as a way to get their foot in the door. And then over time, they can map out more and more of what a human's job looks like, and they can solve more of those adjacent problems. And then that's a way for them to expand their contract size and really build a giant business.
Devon, I was talking to Karlton before about, half your job is you're out there raising money, you're asking for money, and then the other half of your job is people asking you for money. What advice do you have as an investor, but also a fundraiser? Advice raising money, and how has been both sides of the coin, how does that affect how you guys work?
I think in part it goes to what Karlton says, is think about the opportunity, the idea that you want to solve a customer need. And by doing that, you have something that's different. And this is from the founder lens. And so don't be afraid to go down discovery path and that experimental process, and don't be afraid of failure in doing that. Build trust with your investors early on. I think there's this general concept that founders have that if I put my idea out there, that it's just going to be stolen and somebody's, going to capitalize on it. And I'd argue that a lot of the most successful founders that we've seen in our time and before are the ones who actually execute a specific playbook and a strategy. And while the idea is big and there's some timing elements to it and the why now insight, they have really started to think deeply about all of the different pieces that they need to fill the puzzle in. Our pitch is that we actually have a unique model, a why now moment. In 2020, something fundamentally changed across the MBA landscape, okay? You had to be a deferred MBA, you had to be there in 2020 at the right time, and you had to have the right investor background. And we had all three of those things. And granted, we weren't perfect. We complemented that and supplemented that with creating the right network of people, either with gray hair or no hair, who could help us think about some of the missteps and challenges along the way. But we were well positioned to capitalize on that opportunity. That is unique. There's no other fund doing that. We can target a specific founder profile that has historically and continues to be true today, outperformed the rest of the market. We can target them up to 5 years before any venture capitalist. Okay, we are non-traditional. We don't look like your normal venture capitalist, and we view that as an advantage, not a disadvantage. The average age of a unicorn founder is 28. We're not too far off, and so we can speak, we can relate to them, we can familiarize ourselves with new technology tools that we think we can come in and add real value to them. And that is the pitch to our limited partners, is if you're looking for something new that has the ability to create alpha, we're the two people who we believe can do it.
Devon, Karlton, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.